Hi everybody, it's Swank Ivy here with another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 69. One of my commenters made a joke in the last video, 68, in the comments saying number 69 should be about sexual jokes and the fact that aces can laugh at sexual jokes. So, I don't want to do a whole video just about that, but I actually really want to talk about that subject because there have been a couple of conversations I've been a part of where someone decided that there is an asexual personality type, and that if you're an asexual person, you won't do something like laugh at a sexual joke. You'll be too offended because I guess we're not supposed to be able to find sex funny. We're supposed to just be grossed out by it. There's only one valid reaction to sex being mentioned or joked about. We, of course, would never joke about it ourselves. We would not understand sexual humor. We would not be able to appreciate it. And, of course, the idea of us actually being okay with sex or even having sex ourselves would be out of the question. So, obviously, these are things that end up being a problem for some asexual people because, as you all know, if you know any asexual people or you are an asexual person, people will go out of their way to find some reason why how we identify is not valid. And one of the ways they do that is constructing a very strict understanding of what an asexual person would be like, and then comparing us to that and saying, but you don't fit. You're not this, so therefore I don't have to believe you, or I don't have to support you, or I can continue to argue about what you should identify as. Obviously, people being inappropriately invested in how we identify is part of a lot of our experience, and this is just another way that people do it. They construct an idea of what asexual people are like, and usually it's insulting and based on a very narrow interpretation of kind of what they find being conjured up as images in their mind when you say asexual. So I would like to share a post that I made in response to something that I saw on Reddit. As you probably know if you've been following my videos, there's been seepage of my fandom interests into my asexuality videos, and I'm a huge Steven Universe fan. Recently on Reddit I saw someone say that it was stupid that anyone ever thinks the character Amethyst is an asexual character. Some people joke that she's basically the colors of the asexual flag, and that therefore that's fuel for that fire. But really, what it is she is a character in the show who has not had any obvious relationships, I guess, which also means that it's more like maybe aromanticism or non-partner seeking behavior versus asexuality, but it makes it kind of difficult to figure out how to classify these characters, since as a race the character is an alien race. So she comes from a species that doesn't have sexual reproduction, and they all present kind of traditionally feminine in some way. They all use she, her pronouns, and none of them is, I guess it would be hard to call somebody gay if your species is all one sex. So obviously the gay designation, if somebody says one of these characters from the gemstone race is gay, it's really only as a reference point for us, because when we see that, we see a same-sex couple, and that means something different to us than it would to them. Of course, in the context of the show, there's a lot of revolution and radical behavior with regard to how they choose to have relationships anyway, within their own context. But I'm not going to go into that. Anyway, I got pretty upset when I saw this person posting on Reddit saying it's stupid that anyone would suggest that Amethyst is an asexual character because it doesn't fit her personality, they said. So that is problematic in many ways. If you're not a fan of the show, I will briefly explain that this character is, she's kind of the messy, loud one.
Aw, thanks. I try.
She, she annoys one of the other characters who's very prim and proper and very fixated on organization and stuff.
Oh, you are just so childish! Yeah, don't forget, reckless, vulgar, loudmouth. That's just what makes me so awesome!
So she's messy, she eats a lot of messy food and bad food. She'll eat literal garbage. She sleeps all the time, she laughs at crass jokes. So she is basically, she's very indulgent of her inclinations. So this person looked at that and said, well, being asexual wouldn't fit that person's personality. And this is where I take issue. So I am going to read a response. I didn't respond directly to this person, but this is kind of an essay I composed on the subject of why it's not ridiculous to see her that way. I don't personally see her necessarily as an asexual character. I don't have strong feelings about it, but there's no reason she couldn't be. Even if she did have a relationship, there's no reason that she couldn't be. But these are the reasons that I thought that was an inappropriate observation, and you don't have to understand anything about the show to understand what I'm going to say here, because I give context for it. And just so you know, before I go into reading what I wrote, if you don't know, I use the term headcanon. If you don't know what that means, canon is, it's the canon of of a show or a work or a book, is what the creators wrote. It's in the source material, whereas a head canon is it's in your head and you believe that it's a true statement about the source material, but it's not backed up by the show itself or the work itself. So if you headcanon something, it means it's just something that you kind of theorize and believe is true and react as if it's true, but it isn't necessarily proven. So when I use that term, you'll know if you weren't aware of the term already. Okay. I recently came across a post on Reddit where a member of the Steven Universe subreddit demanded to know where the stupid headcanon of Amethyst came from, and opined that it's ridiculous because that orientation does not fit her personality. And their post says, I don't understand why some people headcanon Amethyst as asexual. Knowing her character, it doesn't fit. How did this stupid headcanon start? Think about that for a sec, y'all. Sexualities don't have personalities. This is a problem. If you follow some of the interviews creator Rebecca Sugar has done over the years, especially lately, she sometimes talks about her growth toward understanding herself as bisexual and why it took her so long to figure it out. It was partly because media representation of characters follows a certain system, and as a result, she'd been led to believe bisexual people were aggressively sexual, greedy, unfaithful, and extremely desirous of attention. I didn't know you could be a shy bisexual, she said, and you can hear the wonder in her voice at the idea. So let's really consider that, please. Any orientation can have any type of personality, and if you pigeonhole someone into what their orientation is likely to be because of how you interpret their personality and what messages you've internalized about what traits go with the way they are, you are probably contributing to this damaging message. Moving on, full disclosure, I'm an asexual Steven Universe fan. I'm also a romantic, and anybody who says asexual people wouldn't have a personality like Amethyst has probably never hung out in a room full of asexual people. I have. There are shy people in the groups. There are conservative people in the groups. There are easily offended and sensitive people in the groups. But you will also find body asexual people cracking gross jokes. Asexual people who nevertheless turn everything into a sex joke. Asexual people who are sex positive and even occasionally promiscuous or interested in sex. If you don't understand how that's not a contradiction, I'll just leave you on your own to read some asexual education because I'm not actually trying to go there with this post. Personally, I was raised by a rather crass mom whose sense of humor led her to blurt, "Is it a penis? Ha ha ha," at the start of every round of Pictionary. She taught her daughters sex education early because she wanted us to know the facts. And though she joked about sex a lot, she also made it very clear that she expected us to make sex a part of our lives when we were older, and didn't want us to think it was shameful or should be hidden. She gave us access to birth control in our mid-teens and made sure we had the resources to make good choices about sex. It wasn't embarrassing or weird in our house, and even though I turned out ace, my siblings are straight and married. I grew up making ridiculous sex jokes and not being at all shocked by sexual humor or sexual situations. It was all just a good time and an accepting atmosphere. It was also okay that I didn't desire it myself. It didn't mean I couldn't dish out the innuendo with the best of them.
I don't know about this.
Hey man, it's cool. I've seen your junk before.
And yet, sometimes when I've come out as ace to someone and they notice I use swear words, or am not horrified into covering my face during the movie's kissing scene, or have done things they don't really expect asexual people to enjoy, I'm treated to this weird mixture of shock and mock. What? Aren't you too pure to use language like that, young lady? Plug your virgin ears, girl. We're talking about adult things. Don't worry, I won't mention sex, LOL triggered. She wouldn't be interested. It's about relationships and she thinks that's icky. You just used the F word. Isn't that ironic? No, having a vocabulary that includes vulgarities and being tolerant of other people's desires is not inconsistent with being asexual. Being asexual means I don't feel sexually attracted to other people. It says absolutely zero about my behavior, and nothing I do is wrong behavior for an asexual person because I am doing it. Back to Amethyst. Asexuality is a dicey issue for discussing gems because they're technically all asexual. They're not a sexually reproducing species, so there really shouldn't be any reason for them to desire each other sexually.
What is this strange ritual?
That's,
Are they attempting fusion?
No, well, my dad told me during certain stages in your life.
How could anyone indulge in this? Baseless drivel! I'll have no part of it.
But they do seem to want intimacy and closeness in some situations, and there's definitely romantic attraction between some of them. It's sometimes hard to tell whether sex would be a concept available to them, besides gems who shapeshift to mimic how humans do it, because it is, after all, a family show. And sometimes you have to wonder if the relative chastity of some of the romantic scenes is due to the intended audience. Amethyst has been more than once described by Rebecca Sugar as Dionysian. She was set up as an opposite to Pearl's Apollonian nature. If you don't know, Apollo versus Dionysus is a concept of Greek origin that's often used in literature to set characters at odds with each other. Apollo is everything Pearl is, rational, clean, proper, perfect, and Dionysus instead embraces the mess, just like Amethyst. Dionysian characters are sloppy, unruly, chaotic, and, this is important, hedonistic. They do what feels good. Given this, I understand the root of why some people feel asexuality and amethyst wouldn't go together well. And all things considered, it's true. Amethyst seems to me like the kind of gem who would try anything, especially if other people seem to enjoy it, and especially if abstaining is portrayed as prudent and restrained. She's a let-it-loose kind of character, and it's hard to imagine someone like her, who loves to eat, sleep, hoard, and be lazy, wouldn't have tried a few rolls in the hay, right? Well, sure, maybe. And yet, we've seen no specific evidence of it. She could choose any form, but she's never seen trying to change herself to look sexy. She's displayed no particular intimate or romantic interest in anyone besides casual physicality and warmth. She's the only main 4 crystal gem who hasn't been pursued romantically by a human, and she's a little insecure and seems to crave attention sometimes, but never spins it as a need to be fulfilled by romantic attention. She never expresses that she wishes she was someone's partner. Who knows? Maybe she's tried it out, found nothing she liked, said eh, and decided it's not her bag. Hedonism is about embracing what feels good. If those kinds of relationships just didn't feel good for her, I could see her just deciding they were boring and still fully embracing her other Dionysian qualities. She can indulge in naps and eat all the food in the fridge and hoard all the garbage she wants, without that indicating she must also possess and pursue amorous relations. There's also the fact that a minority of asexual people are like, screw it, I'll try it, and don't find sex completely objectionable, or might even like it. Not all, not most, not me, but this does exist. They still may not desire it the way non-asexual people do, or may experience no attraction despite having neutral or positive feelings about the act itself. Who knows? Amethyst could be like that. We've seen her eat food she doesn't even like, just because it's there. Some people take or leave sex like that.
That pizza wasn't even good.
And if you say her type necessarily incorporates promiscuity or a large sexual appetite, or you say she couldn't be ace because she's not uptight and straight-laced, you're buying right into the damaging stereotypes about asexual people. It's certainly not ace-phobic to headcanon Amethyst is bisexual or pansexual or lesbian or whatever you want, and it's fine if you believe the closeness she's displayed with others that I interpret as friendship or non-romantic intimacy is actually a different flavor. What's not fine is saying Amethyst cannot be asexual or aromantic because of weird beliefs you have about what ace-aro people would be like. Further, asexual people unfortunately don't have that much representation, and usually we're reduced to embracing absence as evidence. If a character isn't shown to like anyone that way, whoa, they might be ace. It's so very rare that a character does actively say or do something that indicates their lack of attraction. We often have to see ourselves in the not yet, if we want any representation at all, running the risk of having our headcanon smashed as soon as a writer decides a certain type of attraction in a relationship will make that character interesting. But at least we're in the same boat as every other fan there. What we want to happen isn't necessarily what will happen. And for those who think Amethyst might be ace and or aro, she's such a great example of someone who isn't defined by the overly cautious, conservative germaphobe who is obsessed with logic and conflates their abstention with purity and righteousness. And just as a break here, if you're a germaphobe or you're any of those things, I'm not saying that's like a bad thing or that that's a stereotype necessarily. I am basically saying that people like to lump those things together, kind of like they usually give allergies to nerds in movies. It's like they tend to use these things to complete an image of a character, and, you know, I'm just saying here that she's a really interesting example of if she was asexual but she wasn't any of the things that people keep assuming go with asexuality. That would be really cool for us. Anyway, I get really tired of asexuality being tied in with those traits because non-ace writers can't imagine ace people without sucking fun and flexibility out of their souls. And on the flip side, isn't it wonderful to have the logical, organized, clean, perfect character be a giant lesbian? This is one box queer women rarely see themselves put in, but I know they're out there. I'm friends with a few. As for me, do I headcanon Amethyst is asexual or aromantic? Honestly, I'm not very invested in the theory. I can see it and I could support it in a debate if someone asked me to, but I think Amethyst could turn out to be anything, really.
Whatever.
The most likely thing for her to be is fluid.
What you gotta be is loose.
I think she's cute with Pearl sometimes, though Pearl having a mom vibe and being so much older and having other attractions does give me pause. I think the idea of her with Peridot or Vidalia is interesting, though Peridot more than Amethyst reads as possibly ace, and there's more built up between her and Lapis now. I could even see her with another tertiary character someday. I wouldn't bat an eye. But Amethyst as ace and or aro would also make complete sense to me, and might even fit best with her living free and unbound attitude, and when you look at the asexual flag, Amethyst is certainly dressed for it. That's the end of that ramble, but I will add a couple notes here. So I have another new channel if you're interested in checking it out. There's not a whole lot there yet, but my friend Victor and I started a YouTube channel where we eat stuff. So we've been posting these like snack box videos that are pretty funny sometimes. I don't know how interesting they'll be to anyone, but we get these snack boxes from a company called Universal Yums, and they send us these international snacks, and we try them, and we talk about them, and we do the trivia, and we, eat food. So that's fun. I'll put the link to that in the description of this video. And we do plan to do some gaming on our channel when we figure out how to do the interface. This is something that he's been wanting to do for a while, and I don't play video games, so I don't really know much about video games, which makes me kind of an unspoiled and maybe an unusual perspective on gaming. So assuming we ever get it started, that might be fun for some of y'all to see, a non-gamer trying to do gaming. So I am hoping to play a couple of games to kind of figure out how to get the interface working and figuring out kind of our dynamic. And one of the games we plan to play is Kingdom Hearts, so that should be fun. I hope we figure it out soon. So you can subscribe to that if you want to. And other than that, I think I'm done here. I will talk to y'all again next time. Bye.